right, let's bring out our next reader. We haven't had the pleasure of having his company. Let's give a warm round of applause for Eddie Osborne.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank each and every one of you for attending this celebration of what my friend Tony calls the audible arts. And James, thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm honored that you think I might have something to say. Now, for those of you who are hearing me for the first time, you should know I don't write fiction and I'm not a poet. You see, I struggle with iambic pentameter, and quite frankly, no offense, James, haikus confuse the heck out of me. What I do, however, is write essays about issues that are important to me, and tonight's essay is on the subject of community. Now, before I begin, you should know I offer no one-size-fits-all answer, no blueprint, no universal guideline for achieving a sense of community. My talk tonight comes from the filters of my experiences, the principles I hold dear, and my hopes for my community. I will, however, offer you the wisdom of Eleanor Roosevelt, who more than 80 years ago wrote, "What we need in this world is manners." I think instead of preaching brotherly love, if we preach good manners, we might get a little further, and it sounds less righteous and a lot more practical. Now, it's no secret that we're living in contentious times. We seem to erect all sorts of arbitrary roadblocks to connecting with others that only serve to broaden the divide and deepen the chasm. It seems we limit our interaction to those of a like mind while marginalizing those who might hold a different view, look different, or speak a different language. Far too often we discount the perspective of others simply because it has not been our experience. At the very time that we need a welcoming and open community, it seems that we are becoming more insular. We seem to live in a time when rancor has replaced respect, and volume is far too often mistaken for veracity. It seems greed is celebrated and compassion disparaged. We are far more likely to give credence to verbal attacks while denigrating empathy. And while that might very well be how it is, I refuse to participate in the prevailing culture of divisiveness. Now, as I contemplated tonight's subject, I grew comfortable with the fact that my community isn't monolithic and frankly isn't always nice. You see, in my very fluid community, there are village idiots, scoundrels, heroes, cowards, gurus, and gadabouts. There's folks I admire and folks that I avoid. And in her essay in praise of hometowns, Mary Pfeiffer wrote that diversity in community is as healthy as diversity in any ecosystem. Without diversity in age, ethnicity, and ideas, we don't have communities, we have lifestyle enclaves. Community does not mean free of conflict. It's inevitable and even healthy because great differences as conflict can lead to closeness. A strong community will include people of different ages, ethnic backgrounds, socioeconomic statuses, and interests. Now, in my estimation, one of the roadblocks to community is often how we label those who don't share our viewpoint as somehow less than. It might be one's political affiliation, who one loves, or what deity one worships or not. Our acceptance or rejection of others is often determined by how we perceive them. When we don't know others, it's easy to place labels on them. When we label, we assign status. When we assign status, we assign worth. When we assign worth, we decide how we're going to treat one another and often the words that we use. And I don't know about you, but I'm convinced that words matter because hurling invectives is in diametrical opposition to the concept of community. I hold the philosophy that while I might not agree with you or agree with someone, everyone has worth. And it's my opinion that the two essential building blocks of community are respect for others and acceptance of differences, which is quite frankly easy to say, but not always that easy to do. There are times when our beliefs are ridiculed and we ridicule the beliefs of others. We seem to be caught up in an ongoing cycle of acrimony that precludes civil discourse. And I won't speak for anyone else, but I hope to interrupt that self-perpetuating cycle of negativity. You see, I truly believe if one gives respect and shows acceptance, it plants the seeds for reciprocal behavior. I'm well aware that it might not happen immediately, but I cannot be deterred from trying. I also know that I can't put this off on someone else. It has to start with me. It's up to me to move this Latin phrase, which loosely translated means recognize everyone, from concept into action. You see, how I treat people is absolutely central to the man I aspire to be. To borrow a phrase from the web series Kid President, I try to be somebody who makes everybody feel like somebody. Now, I hold the steadfast belief that we are far more alike than different. Different cultures, different experiences, different practices exist, and frankly, I'm okay with that because I believe there are universal truths that overshadow any label. There may be differences, but we are all part of the human race. We are sons, mothers, fathers, and daughters. We feel the same. We all rejoice. We despair, we love, and we fear. And I think that once we recognize the similarities, the differences will matter far less. It's important for all of us to remember that different certainly does not mean inferior. Now, I don't define my community by a geographical location, but rather a sense of connection to people throughout my life. From my early life in rural Missouri to my young adulthood in urban Norfolk, Virginia, and back to Missouri, I've been incredibly fortunate to have connected with so many good, kind, and interesting people from more than 20 countries and nearly every state in the Union. Now, here's another thing. My community seems to expand on a regular basis. It seems I am always having the good fortune of meeting interesting people who share my desire to make this world a better place. A recent example of that is a brief but nonetheless profound and genuine connection with a married couple from Saudi Arabia. Hafiz, who is from Jordan, and Hayam, who is from Palestine, are about my age and are the parents of 5 children, all who are college educated, who travel a few months out of the year. We connected because we welcomed one another in the spirit of acceptance and respect. We spoke of family, friends, and how our similarities are far more important than any perceived differences. Hayam spoke lovingly of this being the first Eid that she and her youngest daughter had been apart and how much she missed her. And I remember Hafiz being genuinely touched that I knew that the first Eid came after Ramadan. We celebrated our connection in the most modern of ways. We friended one another on Facebook. Now, while I'm not one to adhere to the tenets of any religious faith, I find great comfort in what I see as the common theme in all the world's religions. I believe that compassion and empathy are not only the core of religious belief, but they are the very foundation of an emotionally healthy view of the world. The Judeo-Christian tradition calls it the Golden Rule, and while other faith systems may call it something else. The phrases are different, the concept the same. And I make a conscious effort to connect people, I make a conscious effort to connect with people and try to bring people together in a culture of mutual respect. Through that, I hope we can begin to see one another in a new light and perhaps even treat one another as we wish to be treated. With that in mind, I have an idea. Let's eschew diatribes and encourage dialogue. Let's listen before we respond. Let's resist the urge to retaliate. Let's celebrate those times when our actions and our values align. Let's create relationships where we can disagree without feeling the need to dehumanize. Let's encourage everyone to have a voice and a face in our community and affirm our interaction. Let's pledge to celebrate kindness and to practice civility. Let's show one another the better side of humanity. Let's treat one another the way we wish to be treated. It's really not all that hard, you know. Thank you.